Beneath the banyan tree, where curses whisper and love refuses to die. Prologue: the tree that watches. The banyan tree stood at the edge of the village, its aerial roots twisting like arms reaching for something lost long ago. Its branches stretched wide, casting shadows even under noon sun. The villagers avoided it. They said it was cursed, that at night, if you walked too close, the tree whispered in voices of the forgotten. Beneath its roots sat a young man, his back pressed against the ancient bark. His face was youthful, smooth, untouched by time. Yet his eyes told another story, an ocean of years, of loneliness and waiting. Fireflies glowed faintly around him as if drawn to his stillness. He pressed his hand against the ground, feeling the faint pulse of the tree. The curse tethered him here. The spirit's cruelty had bound his soul to the banyan, freezing him in an eternal loop of days. He could attend the village, walk the paths, even speak with people, but he never aged, never left. And no one dared to truly look at him. They greeted him politely, offered courtesy, but their eyes slid away, always filled with unease. To them, he was not a man. He was a warning. So, he waited. For someone who might see past the whispers. Someone who reached through shadows. Someone who could love him, despite his curse. Chapter 1. The New Teacher. The train screeched to a stop at the tiny station of the village. Heat shimmered in the air as Arjun stepped down, clutching his worn leather satchel. The city still clung to him in the way his shirt sleeves were rolled, in the way he looked at the world with curiosity instead of suspicion. He was 24, freshly graduated from the university, and had chosen to accept a post as the new village school teacher. His colleagues had laughed. Why go to a place where even electricity cuts out every night? They had teased. But Arjun wanted something different, somewhere quiet, somewhere real. The villagers greeted him kindly enough, though he could sense the curiosity in their eyes. A stranger among them. The school was small, a single building painted in fading blue. The headman explained that many adults also attended evening classes after their work in the fields. They want to learn letters, accounts, for business, the headman said. You will teach them. That evening, the classroom smelled of chalk and kerosene lamps. Men and women of all ages sat on wooden benches, their eyes filled with determination. Arjun began the lesson, his voice steady, his chalk tapping lightly against the board. His gaze caught on one student. He was sitting at the back, away from the lamplight. Arjun noticed him instantly. His posture was calm, his features delicate, sharp cheekbones, almond eyes that gleamed in the dim glow. He looked young, perhaps 19 or 20, but there was something off. Not unsettling exactly, but uncanny. When their eyes met, Arjun felt the world tilt. The young man held his gaze for longer than anyone else dared. His eyes were too knowing, too old. After class, most students left in chatter, but that young man lingered, gathering his notebook slowly. Arjun walked over. You're new to class? Arjun asked, his tone gentle. The boy looked up. His voice was soft, almost musical. I've been here many times before. People forget. Arjun blinked. Forget? What do you mean? The boy only smiled faintly, as if amused by his confusion. He tucked the notebook under his arm and moved toward the door. Before leaving, he paused and said, My name is Dev. The banyan knows me. Arjun stood frozen, watching him step into the night. Through the open window, he saw Dev walking down the road toward the edge of the village, where the old banyan tree loomed under the starlight. The villagers had warned him earlier. Don't go near the tree after dark. Strange things happen. Yet as Arjun watched Dev's silhouette blend with the shadows of the banyan, he felt a strange pull in his chest, a quiet certainty. His life in this village would not be ordinary. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Night. The first week passed in a quiet rhythm. Arjun taught his classes by day and his evening lessons to adults by night. He grew used to the rhythm of the village, the rooster's cry at dawn, the laughter of children chasing each other barefoot, the hiss of oil lamps lit at dusk when power faltered. But one thing disturbed the stillness. Dev. Dev was always there. At the back of the classroom, in the market when Arjun went to buy vegetables, sometimes even on the path by the river. Not intrusive, never too close, just there, like a shadow that did not quite belong. And yet, no one spoke to him. One afternoon, Arjun mentioned Dev to the shopkeeper while buying rice. "That boy?" the man muttered, lowering his voice. His eyes flicked toward the banyan tree in the distance. "Best you keep away. He's not like us." Arjun frowned. "What does that mean?" "He attends class, same as everyone." The shopkeeper didn't reply. He only muttered something about bad luck and busied himself with the weighing scale. That night, unable to sleep, Arjun stepped outside. The village was bathed in moonlight, silver spreading across the fields. From his doorway, he could see the banyan tree, its branches reaching like frozen waves, and beneath it, Dev. He sat there as if part of the roots, his face lifted to the moon. For a moment, Arjun simply watched, entranced. There was something heartbreakingly lonely in that stillness. On impulse, Arjun walked across the silent path. The grass crunched softly under his sandals. When he reached the banyan, Dev did not move, only turned his head slowly, as if he had been expecting him. "You shouldn't be here," Dev said quietly. His voice carried no anger, only weary resignation. "And yet you are," Arjun replied. Dev smiled faintly, a smile that did not reach his eyes. "I don't have a choice." "You do." Arjun sat down beside him, surprising even himself. "Maybe I don't. Maybe something brought me here." Dev's gaze lingered on him for a long moment. In the moonlight, his eyes looked impossibly deep, filled with secrets. Then, almost in a whisper, he asked, "Can you really see me?" Arjun blinked. "Of course I can. You're right in front of me." Dev shook his head, a shadow of sorrow in his expression. "No, most people only see what they're told. To see a curse, a shadow. They look away. You're still looking." Arjun's heart skipped a beat at the vulnerability in those words. He wanted to reach out, to touch Dev's hand resting on the root between them, but he hesitated. Instead, he asked softly, "Then tell me, who are you really, Dev?" Dev tilted his head back, eyes tracing the tangled canopy above. The silence stretched, filled with the chorus of crickets and the rustle of night wind. Finally, he whispered, "I am someone the banyan refuses to let go." Arjun shivered, not from fear, but from the strange pull of Dev's words. He did not understand them fully, but he felt the weight of centuries behind them. And yet, beneath that weight, there was something else. Something fragile. Something human. For the first time since arriving, Arjun felt that his purpose in this village wasn't only to teach. It was to understand the boy who sat beneath the banyan tree, waiting for someone to see him. Chapter 3. The Curse in Their Eyes. The monsoon clouds gathered early that week, heavy and brooding. The air carried the scent of wet earth even before the first raindrop fell. Arjun spent the day hunched over notebooks in the classroom, correcting assignments by lamplight. The children's voices had long since faded, replaced by the hum of insects and the occasional bark of a stray dog. He thought about Dev more often than he admitted. It wasn't just curiosity, though. Dev's strange words haunted him. It was the way he sat in class, listening so intently, as though the simplest lesson was a gift. His eyes, too sharp, his youthful face, seemed to carry centuries. That evening, while buying milk from dairy shed, Arjun overheard voices behind him. "Still attending the classes?" Woman muttered. "Han, I saw him last night too," another replied, lowering her voice. "Sitting there like nothing has changed." "It never does. That's the problem," the first hissed. "Don't you remember your grandmother's stories? He hasn't aged since she was a girl. Since her time." Arjun stiffened, his hands tightening around the milk jug. A man joined in, his voice rough. "Best to leave him be. A cursed soul bound to that tree. Anyone who gets too close will suffer same fate. The group fell silent when they noticed Arjun listening. Their gazes slid away, guilty but unrepentant. Arjun left quickly, the milk sloshing in the jug. Back in his small quarters, he sat by the window, staring at the banyan tree outlined against the storm clouds. Their words circled his mind. Hasn't aged since her time. Bound to that tree. Cursed. A man of education, Arjun didn't believe in curses. And yet, what explanation was there? Dev's presence unsettled even him, tugging at the edges of what he thought reality was. But beyond all the whispers and fear, what struck Arjun most was the loneliness in Dev's eyes. He remembered the way Dev had asked, "Can you really see me?" And Arjun had answered yes. The storm broke that night. Rain poured in sheets, hammering the rooftops, turning the paths into streams of mud. The wind howled through the narrow lanes of the village, rattling shutters and bending trees. Arjun couldn't sleep. Something gnawed at him, a restless pull. Almost against his will, he took his umbrella and stepped into the storm. His sandals sank into the mud as he walked toward the banyan tree. And there he was. Dev sat beneath the sprawling roots, his hair plastered to his face, his thin shirt clinging to his body. He wasn't seeking shelter, he was the shelter. The banyan, his only roof. Rain streamed down his cheeks, indistinguishable from tears. "Dev!" Arjun shouted above the roar of rain. "What are you doing out here? You'll catch your death!" Dev looked up slowly, his eyes shimmering in the stormlight. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I cannot leave. You know that." Arjun dropped beside him, mud soaking his trousers. He held the umbrella over them both, though it was useless against the downpour. "Then I'll sit with you." For a moment, Dev's expression cracked, a flicker of surprise. Then something raw, something aching. "You shouldn't," he whispered. "They'll say you've been tainted, that you'll be cursed too." Arjun turned, meeting his gaze steadily. "Let them say it. I don't care." The words hung between them, heavier than the storm. Dev's breath caught. He lowered his eyes to the roots at his feet, tracing them with trembling fingers. "You don't understand. I am not like you. I have been here longer than anyone remembers. I do not age. I do not belong." His voice broke, soft but jagged. "Every time I try to reach out, they turn away, because they only see a monster tied to a tree." Arjun's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, to insist Dev was no monster, but instead, he did the only thing that mattered. He stayed. He placed his hand over Dev's, where it rested on the roots. Warm against cold, steady against trembling. Dev froze, his eyes lifted, wide and disbelieving. Why are you doing this?" "Because you're not invisible to me," Arjun said, his voice low, steady against the storm. "Because I see you." The words cracked something open. Dev shuddered, and for the first time, his composure broke. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against Arjun's shoulder. His body shook not from cold, but from the weight of years carried alone. Arjun held the umbrella awkwardly in one hand, his other arm moving hesitantly, then surely, around Dev's back. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The rain poured. The banyan whispered, and beneath it, two souls sat pressed together, not teacher and cursed boy, not skeptic and mystery, but simply two men, finding warmth in a world that had only given them shadows. For Dev, it was the first time in his lifetime that someone had chosen to stay. For Arjun, it was the beginning of something he could not yet name, but felt deep in his chest, an anchor, a promise. And though the storm raged on, beneath the banyan tree, there was peace. Chapter 3. The Curse in Their Eyes. Part 2. The storm eased after midnight, though rain still dripped steadily from the banyan's endless canopy. The world smelled of wet earth and damp leaves, a scent heavy with memory. Arjun and Dev sat close together, their bodies damp, shoulders brushing under the trembling umbrella. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence wasn't awkward, it was heavy, charged, as if the banyan itself leaned in to listen. Finally, Dev stirred. He lifted his head from Arjun's shoulder and looked at him with unreadable eyes. There was no moon, no starlight, but even in the darkness, his gaze glowed faintly. "You don't know what you've done," Dev whispered. Arjun tilted his head. "What have I done?" "You sat with me." His voice trembled, not with anger, but something closer to fear. "No one has done that in so long. I can't even measure." They cross the road to avoid me. They whisper when I walk past. "I am cursed, Arjun. You don't understand what that means." Arjun's heart clenched at the naked pain in his voice. "Then help me understand. Tell me." Dev's lips parted, but no words came at first. He looked away, out into the rain-dark fields. His hands curled into fists on his lap. "The banyan, it keeps me," Dev said at last, his words halting. "I was not always this way. Once, I was just a boy. My family lived here. When the village was smaller, poorer, we worshipped the spirit of this tree, as all did. It was sacred, a protector." He paused, his throat working. His voice dropped low, almost inaudible beneath the patter of rain. "One night, during the festival, I did what I should not have. I was young, reckless. I challenged the spirit, mocked it even. I said I wanted to live forever, so that I could see the world change while I remained untouched. I thought it a joke, but the spirit," his voice cracked, a thin thread of anguish. "The spirit listened, and it gave me exactly what I asked for." Arjun's breath caught. He wanted to say something that isn't fair. "You were just a boy," but Dev's eyes, ancient and sorrowful, stopped him. "I have not aged since that night," Dev said. "Decades have passed, generations. My parents died, their children too, and their children after. I watched it all, unable to follow, unable to belong. The banyan binds me. I cannot go farther than the fields without pain so sharp it tears my soul. I am a prisoner of my own foolish wish." His words fell like stones in Arjun's chest. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. The sheer weight of it, decades, maybe centuries pressed down on him. "And so," Dev continued bitterly, "the villagers call me cursed. They teach their children to fear me. They say my shadow brings misfortune. But the truth is simpler. I am only a boy who never grew up. A boy who cannot leave. A boy who waits for nothing." The last words broke, ragged. His shoulders trembled. Though he turned his face away, Arjun could see the tears mingled with the rain. Arjun reached out without thinking. His hand found Dev's, cold and tense, fingers stiff as roots. Slowly, gently, he entwined their hands. "You are not nothing," Arjun said firmly, his voice shaking with the intensity of his own conviction. "Do you hear me, Dev? You are not nothing. You're here. You're alive. You're..." He swallowed, his chest tight. "You're extraordinary." Dev's breath hitched. He stared at their joined hands, as if unable to believe it. "Don't," Dev whispered. "Don't say such things. You'll only regret it." "Why should I regret the truth?" Arjun's thumb brushed lightly against Dev's knuckles. "You think your life is a curse, but to me, you are a wonder. And I want to know you. Not the whispers, not the stories. You." Dev turned toward him, eyes wide, luminous in the dark. For a long, fragile moment, neither moved. The rain fell softer now, the storm passing, but the air between them was heavy with something new, something unspoken. "You'll leave," Dev said at last, barely audible. "They all do. Everyone leaves, and I remain." Arjun's throat ached. He wanted to say "I won't," but he knew promises were fragile things, especially against curses and time. Instead, He said the only thing he was certain of. Tonight, I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Something in Dev's face crumpled. His hand tightened around Arjun's, hesitant at first, then desperate, as if afraid Arjun might vanish at any moment. And so, they sat beneath the banyan, hand in hand, while the rain slowed to a drizzle and dawn's first light touched the horizon. For Dev, the night was one more in 1,000. For Arjun, it was the beginning of something that felt eternal. Chapter 3. 3. The curse in their eyes. The rains lingered for days. The fields shimmered like mirrors. Frogs croaked from the flooded ditches, and the air smelled of wet soil. Life in the village went on. Farmers still tilled, women still drew water, children still laughed barefoot in the mud. But Arjun noticed something new. Wherever he went, eyes followed him. Whispers bloomed in his wake like weeds. The teacher walks with him. He'll be ruined. Poor boy. Doesn't know what danger he courts. Arjun tried to ignore them. Yet the weight of those gazes pressed down heavier each day. Still, every evening he found himself drawn to the banyan. And Dev was always there. Sometimes reading tattered book under the lantern light. Sometimes just sitting in silence, watching the rain fall. Arjun began to bring things with him, hot tea in a flask, parathas wrapped in cloth. At first Dev refused, shaking his head with that soft, sad smile. I don't need these things. Maybe you don't, Arjun replied, setting the food down anyway. But I do. I need to know you've eaten something. Dev's eyes had softened then, and though he never admitted it, the food slowly disappeared each night. One evening, when the rain finally eased into a soft drizzle, Arjun found Dev sitting on the roots, his knees drawn to his chest. The banyan's aerial roots swayed gently around them, like curtains in a secret chamber. Arjun sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders brushed. Neither spoke for a long while. The silence was comfortable, filled only with the drip of water from the leaves. Finally, Arjun broke it. Do you ever get lonely? Dev gave a short, almost bitter laugh. Lonely is all I've ever been. Arjun turned toward him. Even now? Even when I'm here? Dev hesitated. His eyes lowered to where their hands almost touched. You're different, he whispered. When you sit with me, it feels lighter, as if the roots don't bind me quite so tight. But that frightens me too. Why? Arjun asked gently. Because if you leave, it will hurt worse than before. The confession slipped out like a wound opening. Arjun felt something ache deep inside him. Without thinking, he reached out, his fingers brushing against Dev's hand. Dev stiffened. Then slowly, carefully, let their hands rest together, palm against palm. The touch was electric. Not desire something deeper, a connection, raw and tender. The meeting of two souls that had circled each other for lifetimes. I'm not leaving tonight, Arjun said softly. And tomorrow, I'll still come. Dev's lips parted, trembling with words he couldn't say. His hand tightened around Arjun's, as if testing whether this warmth was real. For a long time they sat like that, hands entwined, rain misting around them. Dev leaned slightly, just enough that his head rested against Arjun's shoulder. The weight was delicate, hesitant. But when Arjun didn't pull away, Dev closed his eyes with a shuddering breath. The banyan whispered above them, its roots swaying like guardians. Arjun listened to Dev's breathing, steady but fragile, and felt his own heart respond, protective and fierce. I don't care what they say, Arjun whispered. To me, you are not cursed. You're Dev, and that's enough. Dev's lashes fluttered, damp against his cheeks. His voice was barely audible. No one has said that before. Arjun pressed his forehead against Dev's temple, touch so small, so careful, yet more intimate than any embrace. Then let me be the first. And in that moment, under the banyan's eternal canopy, the world seemed to soften. For the first time in decades, Dev allowed himself to believe in something fragile, impossible, and terrifying hope. Chapter 3. 4. The Curse in Their Eyes. The sky cleared for the first time in days. The banyan glistened with rainwater, each leaf dripping silver under the pale moon. The air was cool, freshly washed, carrying the scent of jasmine from the nearby fields. Arjun arrived later than usual, his satchel slung over his shoulder, a flask of hot tea inside. Dev was waiting, as always, but tonight his posture was different. He sat rigid, arms wrapped around himself, his gaze fixed on the ground. "Dev?" Arjun called softly as he approached. Dev didn't look up. "You shouldn't come!" Arjun froze. "Why?" "You've already heard them," Dev said flatly. His voice was hoarse, scraped raw. "The villagers, their whispers. You know what they think of me. What they'll think of you if you keep sitting here." Arjun dropped his satchel on the roots and crouched before him. "Do you care what they say?" Dev's head jerked up, his eyes flashing in the moonlight. "Of course I do," he snapped. "Not for me. For you. You're meant to be a teacher, respected, welcomed, not ruined because of me." Arjun's chest tightened. He reached out instinctively, brushing damp strands of hair from Dev's forehead. Dev flinched at the touch, but didn't pull away. "I don't care what they say," Arjun said firmly. "I care about what you feel." For a heartbeat, Dev's expression softened, but then his face crumpled. He shoved Arjun's hand away and stood abruptly, pacing under the banyan's twisted canopy. "You don't understand," he burst out. "You can't. You've lived only years. I have lived lifetimes like this. Watching everyone leave, everyone die, everyone turn away. I cannot let myself hope again." His voice cracked, raw and shaking. "Because if I do, and you leave like the rest, it will destroy me." The words sliced through the night, sharp and desperate. Dev's chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, his fists trembling at his sides. He looked young in that moment, terrifyingly young, and heartbreakingly old all at once. Arjun stood slowly, closing the space between them. Dev tensed, as if expecting him to walk away. Instead, Arjun reached for his hands. They were cold, trembling, but he held them firmly. "Then, let me tell you the truth," Arjun said, his voice low, steady. "I can't promise forever. I can't fight time or curses, the banyan. But I can promise this. I'm here, I see you, and I want to stay." Dev's eyes shimmered, wide and vulnerable. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you choose me when I can give you nothing? No future, no freedom, no life outside these roots." Arjun's thumb brushed over Dev's knuckles, gentle. "Because you've already given me something. You've given me you, and that's more than enough." The words struck deep. Dev's breath hitched, his lips parting as if to protest, but no sound came. His body leaned forward instinctively, drawn by something magnetic, impossible to resist. Their foreheads touched first, tentative and trembling. Arjun closed his eyes, his breath mingling with Dev's. The world around them, roots, whispers, centuries fell away. It wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it was the cusp of one, the fragile space where two souls confess without words. Arjun felt Dev shiver, not from cold, but from the sheer enormity of being seen, wanted, touched. For Dev, it was terrifying. For Arjun, it was inevitable. When Arjun finally pulled back, it was only by a breath. His voice was a whisper against Dev's lips. "You deserve love, Dev, even if you don't believe it yet." Dev's eyes fluttered open, glistening with unshed tears. His lips curved in the faintest, trembling smile, hope breaking through despair like dawn through storm clouds. And though the kiss didn't come, the promise of it lingered, heavier than any embrace. Under the eternal banyan, bound by roots and curse, two lives had together, not yet lovers, but no longer alone. Chapter 3. 5. the curse in their eyes. The silence stretched between them, taut as the thread of a bowstring. The banyan swayed gently, though no breeze stirred. Somewhere in the dark, an owl hooted, but neither of them heard it. Dev's hands still trembled in Arjun's. He tried to look away, to retreat into the shadows he had always known, but Arjun wouldn't let him. The teacher's steady gaze pinned him warm, unyielding, unafraid. "Dev," Arjun whispered. Just his name, nothing more, but it landed like a prayer. Dev swallowed hard. His pulse raced, his chest heaved, and his eyes, those dark, haunted eyes, burned with both longing and terror. "I shouldn't," his voice cracked. "I don't know how." Arjun's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then, let me show you." The words were a promise, a vow. Slowly, so Dev could stop him if he wished, Arjun leaned forward. Their noses brushed first, clumsy, tender. Dev's breath caught, sharp in the quiet night. His eyes fluttered shut, lashes trembling, and then finally their lips met. It was a kiss of firsts, tentative, fragile, yet laden with centuries of yearning. Dev stiffened at the contact, every nerve alight, but Arjun's patience guided him. His lips moved gently, coaxing, reassuring. Dev responded awkwardly at first. Then, with a hunger that startled even him, the banyan seemed to stir. Its leaves rustled though the air was still. Its roots creaked faintly, as if the ancient tree itself exhaled after holding its breath for generations. Dev broke the kiss with a gasp, stumbling back a step. His fingers flew to his lips, wide-eyed, as though he had just committed a sin, and yet he was glowing. His cheeks flushed, his chest heaving. He struggled for words, his voice raw. Why would you give this to me?" Arjun stepped closer, refusing the distance. He cupped Dev's jaw gently, grounding him. "Because it wasn't mine to give," he murmured. "It was always yours. You only had to let yourself take it." Dev's breath shuddered out. His hands clutched at Arjun's shirt, not pulling him closer, not pushing him away, just holding on, desperate for something solid. "I've been kissed before," Dev admitted in a hoarse whisper. "But never like this. Never. Like it mattered." Arjun's eyes softened. "It matters to me." Dev looked up, eyes glistening. "And if I lose you?" Arjun didn't answer right away. He pressed their foreheads together again, steady and grounding. "Then, love me now, here, in this moment. Let tomorrow come when it will." For the first time in centuries, Dev allowed himself to believe. His lips found Arjun's again, less tentative, more sure. The kiss deepened, warmer, more desperate, until the banyan's roots pulsed faintly beneath their feet, as though the tree itself recognized the bond forming beneath its branches. When they finally parted, breathless and dazed, the night no longer felt heavy. For a heartbeat, even the curse seemed to loosen its grip. And in that fleeting space between despair and hope, Arjun and Dev both understood this was only the beginning. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Dark. The village awoke before the sun. Women fetched water from the well. Men set out to the fields. Children scampered barefoot along the dusty paths. Life, under the banyan's shadow, had always been ordinary. The whispers began. "Have you seen the teacher wandering at night? Always to the banyan tree. Maybe he's bewitched, like the others before him." The murmurs grew like weeds. Old men shook their heads knowingly. Mothers pulled their children closer when Arjun walked past. He noticed the change in their eyes, respect softening into suspicion, curiosity curdling into fear. But Arjun didn't stop. Every evening, after teaching, after grading, after nodding politely to villagers who avoided his gaze, he made his way back to the banyan. His heart quickened each time, not from fear, but from anticipation. Dev was waiting, always waiting. Tonight, Dev sat cross-legged on the roots, tracing idle patterns in the damp earth. He looked up as Arjun approached, and the faintest smile tugged at his lips. It was small, almost shy, but for Arjun it was dazzling. "You came," Dev said softly. "Of course I did," Arjun replied. He dropped his satchel beside him and poured tea into 2 tin cups. "What kind of teacher would I be if I skipped class?" Dev chuckled, the sound startling even himself. It was rusty, unused, but warm. "Careful, you'll make me believe I'm a student again. Instead of..." His gaze drifted toward the looming banyan trunk, his smile fading. "Instead of a prisoner," Arjun touched his hand. "You're more than what this tree made you." Before Dev could reply, a gust of wind swept through the branches. The banyan shuddered, its roots groaning. Both of them froze. The air thickened, heavy with an energy that prickled Arjun's skin. "Did you feel that?" Arjun whispered. Dev's jaw tightened. "The curse doesn't like change. It senses us." As if to confirm his words, the ground trembled faintly. A low, almost inaudible moan echoed through the hollow of the tree, like a voice carried on the wind. Arjun instinctively moved closer, wrapping an arm around Dev. "Let it sense," he said fiercely. "We're not doing anything wrong." Dev leaned into him, but his expression was shadowed. "To love me is to defy it, and curses don't forgive defiance." The next day, the whispers in the village grew sharper. Old Mira, who sold flowers at the market, stopped Arjun on his way home. "Child," she murmured, eyes darting nervously toward the banyan. "Do not linger there. Too many before you have vanished." Arjun forced a smile. "I'll be careful." But inside, unease coiled. For the first time, he wondered if their stolen kisses beneath the banyan weren't just dangerous for Dev, but for him too. Still, when night fell, he returned. And when Dev greeted him with that trembling, hopeful smile, Arjun knew he would return again, no matter what the curse or the villagers said. Some bonds were worth defying. Chapter 4. 2 Whispers in the Dark. The moon was veiled by clouds that night, and the banyan loomed larger than ever, its roots swollen, its branches twisting like restless arms. Arjun arrived later than usual, his steps quick, his chest tight. The day's whispers clung to him. Bewitched, doomed, like the others. He had laughed it off in public, but now, standing under the banyan's canopy, he felt the weight of their fear pressing against his ribs. "Arjun." Dev's voice steadied him. He stood at the base of the trunk, his silhouette framed in moonlight. Even in shadow, Arjun could see the tension in his shoulders. "You're trembling," Arjun said gently, reaching for him. Dev caught his hand before it touched. "The tree knows." His eyes were dark, restless. "It knows we crossed a line last night." As if summoned by his words, a sudden gust tore through the branches. Leaves rained down in a furious storm. The roots beneath them shifted, curling, tightening like serpents. Arjun stumbled back, but Dev pulled him close, shielding him with his body. The banyan groaned, a sound like bones cracking under the earth, and then voices. Low, layered whispers slithered through the air, curling into Arjun's ears. "Leave him. He is ours. He cannot love you." Arjun clutched his head, dizzy, the whispers coiling inside his skull. "Dev." Dev held him tighter, his voice raw. "Don't listen. They want you gone." The root surged upward, wrapping around Arjun's ankle, cold and slick. He gasped, yanking at it, but the grip tightened. "No!" Dev roared, dropping to his knees. He seized the root with his bare hands, pulling, tearing, his face contorted with rage. The banyan hissed, its trunk splitting with a crack. A terrifying moment. The tree would swallow them whole. The ground quivered. The whispers rose to a deafening chorus until Arjun did the only thing he could. He reached for Dev's face and kissed him. It was reckless, desperate, not tender this time, but defiant. Their lips crashed together, a cry against the storm. The whispers faltered. The roots recoiled violently, snapping back into the soil. The branches stilled. The night went silent. When the kiss broke, both of them were panting. Arjun's ankle throbbed, but he barely noticed. His gaze locked on Dev's wide, astonished eyes. "See?" Arjun whispered, voice trembling but fierce. "Not even your curse can stop this." Dev's chest rose and fell rapidly. His lips parted. A single tear slid down his cheek, shining in the moonlight. "You're going to get yourself killed," he whispered hoarsely. Arjun touched his cheek, thumb brushing the tear away. "Or maybe I'll be the one who finally sets you free." The banyan groaned again, quieter this time, as though it had retreated, licking its wounds. But its malice lingered in the air, thick and watchful. Dev leaned into Arjun's touch, trembling. For the first time in centuries, he wasn't sure who was protecting whom. Chapter 5. The Story of the Roots. The night after the banyan attacked them, the village felt different. The air was heavy with suspicion. At the tea stall, two men spoke in hushed voices when Arjun passed by. Women at the well turned their backs. Children, once eager to greet their teacher, now hid behind doorframes. But Arjun walked with his head high. If anything, his resolve hardened. He had seen what the curse could do, and he had felt how Dev's kiss could push it back. That meant something. It had to. When he reached the banyan, Dev was already there, sitting in the roots with his knees drawn to his chest. He looked smaller tonight, younger, his hair falling into his eyes. "You shouldn't have come," Dev murmured without looking up. Arjun sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "You keep saying that. And yet, here we are." Dev let out a bitter laugh. "Stubborn teacher, cursed student," Arjun countered softly. Dev glanced at him then, lips twitching despite the heaviness in his eyes. "You make it sound almost normal." "Maybe it could be," Arjun said. Dev's smile faded. He looked toward the trunk, his expression distant, pained. "Do you even know what you've tied yourself to?" "Not yet," Arjun admitted. He touched Dev's hand gently. "But I want to. Tell me." Dev hesitated. For a long time, only the night spoke the chirp of crickets, the rustle of leaves. Finally, he exhaled, slow and shaky. "I wasn't always like this," he began. "Once, I was just a boy, like anyone else. I had a family, a little sister who followed me everywhere, dreams of leaving this village, seeing the world." His voice softened, far away. "And love. I thought I'd found it. Once." Arjun stayed quiet, his thumb brushing reassuring circles on Dev's hand. "But I was foolish," Dev continued, his tone darkening. "The banyan was sacred, a place where villagers came with offerings. One evening, I came here with her, the girl I loved. We thought it would be a secret place, a place only ours." He paused, throat working. "But the banyan is never empty. There are spirits that dwell in it, old as the soil itself. They saw us. They wanted us." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They called it a blessing, eternal youth, eternal devotion. But it wasn't for her, it was for me alone. When I refused, they bound me. Roots coiled around my body. Thorns pierced my skin. I begged to take me instead of her. And they did." Arjun's heart clenched. He reached for Dev's jaw, tilting his face gently toward him. "And her?" Dev's eyes shimmered with pain. "She left, terrified. She told the village I was cursed, touched by darkness. By the next sunrise, I wasn't Dev anymore. I was the boy of the banyan, the monster who never aged." He laughed bitterly, but tears slipped down his cheeks. "For decades they came, out of fear, out of curiosity. Some wanted to touch me, to test if I was real. Some wanted to save me. Some wanted to destroy me. But in the end, they all left." Arjun's chest ached. He brushed the tears away with his thumb, firm but tender. "I'm not leaving." Dev's breath hitched. He closed his eyes, leaning into Arjun's touch. Desperate, starving for comfort. "You don't understand. The more you stay, the more the tree will fight. It doesn't forgive love. It wants me alone." Arjun didn't pull away. Instead, he pressed his forehead to Dev's, their breaths mingling. "Then let it fight. I'm not afraid." Dev's lips trembled. "You should be." And yet, when Arjun's lips brushed his gentle, reverent, asking rather than taking, Dev didn't resist. This kiss wasn't desperate like the last. It was slow, lingering, filled with sorrow and hope, pain and promise. Dev clutched at Arjun's shirt, pulling him closer, as though afraid he might vanish if he let go. Arjun held him firmly, grounding him, pouring reassurance into every touch. When they parted, Dev's tears had dried, though his eyes still glistened. For the first time in centuries, he didn't feel like a prisoner telling his story. He felt like a man being heard. And for the first time, Arjun realized this curse wasn't just roots and whispers. It was loneliness. A loneliness so deep, it hollowed Dev into a shadow. But no shadow was too dark for love to reach. Chapter 6. In the Shelter of Roots. The rains came suddenly that week, lashing the village with silver sheets of water. Crops bent low, huts leaked at the edges, and the banyan swelled with wetness, its roots slick and glistening. Arjun should have stayed indoors like the others, but his thoughts returned again and again to Dev alone, drenched beneath a tree that wanted him broken. So he went. By the time he reached the banyan, his kurta clung to him, heavy with rain, his hair plastered to his forehead. He shivered as he ducked beneath the vast canopy, where the storm's roar softened to a muted drum. Dev was there, waiting as always, but tonight he looked startled. "You came in this weather?" Arjun managed a half-smile, teeth chattering. "Did you think a little rain could keep me away?" Dev stared at him, then let out a soft laugh, half disbelief, half tenderness. He tugged Arjun down to sit against one of the larger roots, where the trunk shielded them from the heaviest rain. "You're soaked," Dev murmured, his hands hesitating before touching. Then, unable to resist, he smoothed Arjun's wet hair back, his fingers lingering at his temple. Arjun leaned into the touch, sighing. "Better." For a moment, neither spoke. The storm wrapped them in its cocoon, the banyan groaning softly above, but for once not lashing out. Finally, Dev said quietly, "You're the first person who's ever come to me in the rain." Arjun blinked. "That can't be true." Dev shook his head. "They all avoided storms. The banyan is worse. When it rains, roots slip, branches strike. People stay away. But you," he trailed off, his thumb unconsciously stroking Arjun's damp cheek. "You ran toward me." Arjun's chest tightened. He covered Dev's hand with his own, pressing it firmly against his skin. "Maybe that's what you've been waiting for. Not someone who runs away, someone who runs to you." Dev's breath shuddered out. His eyes glistened, and before he could stop himself, he leaned in. Their lips met again, warmer this time, longer, less desperate than before. A kiss of quiet acceptance, of bodies drawn together like they belonged. When they broke apart, Arjun was trembling, but not from cold anymore. Dev shifted, pulling Arjun into his arms. The embrace was awkward at first, but then natural Arjun's head resting against Dev's chest, Dev's chin brushing his hair. They stayed like that while the storm raged. Dev's body was surprisingly warm, and Arjun felt himself melting into it. The teacher who had always carried others' burdens finally let himself be carried. For Dev, the feeling was overwhelming. No one had ever trusted him enough to sleep against him, not even in centuries. His arms tightened, protective, as though the banyan might steal Arjun away if he loosened his grip. Arjun murmured drowsily, "You feel safe." Dev closed his eyes, a faint smile ghosting his lips. No one has ever said that to me before. Meanwhile, beyond the Banyan's reach, the village elders gathered in a hut. Rain hammered the thatch, drowning out some of their words, but their tone was grim. The teacher spends too much time there. He'll fall under the same spell, or worse, he'll unleash it. An old priest, his voice raspy, concluded, "If the boy of the Banyan has bound the teacher, we must cut the tie before it spreads." They murmured agreement. Plans were set. Storm outside masked their whispers of ritual and fire. Beneath the Banyan, Arjun stirred in Dev's arms, half asleep. Dev pressed a kiss to his hair, gentle, reverent. The storm raged on, but in the shelter of roots, love was quietly blooming, unaware of the fire already being prepared to tear it apart. Chapter 10. The Spirit's Demand. The Banyan shook with rage. That night, when the storm split the sky open with lightning, the tree's roots writhed like snakes, tearing into the earth, lashing the air. Villagers screamed from their huts, terrified, convinced the curse had awakened at last. And in the center of it all, Dev convulsed. His body arched, his skin pale as moonlight, as if the spirit were clawing through him to take back what he had dared to give Arjun. "Dev!" Arjun shouted, gripping his shoulders. "Stay with me. Look at me." Dev's eyes flickered open, wild and glassy. "It's angry," he gasped. "It doesn't want to share me." The Banyan's voice thundered inside both their skulls now, no longer a whisper but a roar. "Mine! Mine! Mine!" Arjun stood, his arms spread, shouting into the storm. "He's not yours! He's not a thing to be owned, he's a man, and he chooses." Lightning slammed into the Banyan's crown, splitting branches, setting fire to its leaves. But the roots writhed closer, trying to tear Dev back into their grip. Dev fell to his knees, choking, his body glowing faintly with the curse's ancient power. "Arjun, run!" "No!" Arjun dropped beside him, holding him close. His voice shook, but his heart blazed. "If love is what binds you, then love is what will set you free. You hear me? Not hers. Mine. Ours." The Banyan hissed, the word twisting. "Ours?" Arjun pressed his forehead to Dev's, kissing him through the storm, unbroken, fearless. Their lips met in defiance, against fear, against centuries, against the spirit that had chained him. The roots lashed forward, then stilled. The fire dimmed. The storm hushed. The Banyan's voice whispered, softer now, not angry but weary, aching. "He was mine once. My son, my blood, betrayed, lost, bound to me so he would never leave." Dev's eyes widened with tears. The truth pierced him like a blade. "The spirit! It was my mother." Arjun's arms tightened around him. "Then let her see he's not a boy to be trapped. He's a man who deserves to live, to love." The Banyan groaned, leaves shuddering in the heavy rain. Then, for the first time, it sighed a sound like centuries of grief exhaling. "If love is unbroken, then I release him." The roots withdrew. The glow faded from Dev's body. And just like that, the curse shattered. Dev collapsed against Arjun, sobbing, but these were not tears of despair. They were raw, overwhelming, alive. Arjun held him, kissing his damp hair, whispering over and over, "You're free, you're mine, you're ours." Above them, the Banyan no longer loomed as a prison. Its leaves whispered softly, as if blessing them. Rain washed the smoke from its branches, leaving it glistening in the dawn's first light. The villagers, who had gathered at a distance, watched in silence. Some knelt, some wept. Who they had seen not a monster, but two men holding each other, as if their love could burn through storms. Dev lifted his head, eyes meeting Arjun's with fragile wonder. "What now?" Arjun smiled through his tears, pressing their foreheads together once more. "Now, you live with me." And for the first time in centuries, Dev believed him. Epilogue. Beneath the banyan tree. The village never forgot the night the banyan burned and healed in the same breath. Some said it was a miracle. Some said it was madness, but none could deny what they saw. A boy who never aged, finally freed, cradled in the arms of the teacher who had chosen him. Months later, the banyan stood tall again, its branches lush and green, no longer a prison but a monument. Where once its roots had bound, now they spread gently into the earth, steady and calm. Dev sat beneath it one golden evening, sunlight filtering through the leaves like blessings. His hair caught the light, his skin no longer pale with curse but warmed by life. For the first time, he looked his age, not ancient, not ageless, but alive. Arjun approached from the path, a basket of books in hand, his kurta loose, his smile soft. The sight of him made Dev's chest ache in the sweetest way. "You're late," Dev teased, though his lips curved with affection. Arjun set the basket down and slid beside him, their shoulders touching. "Blame the children, they wanted more stories. They've started calling me Master Arjun the Brave." Dev chuckled, the sound rich and free. "Brave or foolish?" "Foolish," Arjun said, leaning in, brushing their noses together. "But worth it, if it brought me you." Dev's throat tightened. Even months later, he wasn't used to such words, not because they weren't true, but because they were. He reached out, threading his fingers through Arjun's, holding on as though the earth itself might shift if he let go. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm dreaming," Dev admitted softly. "That I'll wake up again with the curse whispering mine, mine, mine." Arjun kissed his temple, slow and lingering. "Then I'll remind you, every day, every night, that you're free, that you're mine, because you choose to be. And I'm yours, Dev, always." Dev closed his eyes, leaning into the touch. Warmth spread through him, not the consuming fire of desire alone, though that still lingered between them, but the steady, glowing flame of a love that had survived storms, spirits, and centuries. They lay back beneath the banyan, the roots now soft beneath them. Dev turned into Arjun's embrace, lips meeting his in a kiss both tender and deep. No fear, no chains, only love, unbroken. The leaves rustled in the wind, not in anger, sorrow, but in blessing. Beneath that ancient tree, two men built a life that was finally wholly theirs. Chapter 9. Fevered Shadows. The monsoon clouds returned, heavy with rain, draping the village in shadow. Nights beneath the banyan had become Arjun's sanctuary, and Dev's as well. But sanctuary was turning into something more, something they both could no longer hold back. Arjun had grown bold, lingering in every glance, every brush of his hand against Dev's arm. And Dev, though shy, no longer pulled away. The hunger was there, in the tremor of his breath, in the way his eyes lingered on Arjun's lips before darting away, guilty, yearning. That evening, they sat close beneath the sprawling roots. Arjun had just finished reading another faded passage. To unbind what is bound, the heart must be freely given where once it was stolen. In fire, in blood, or in love unbroken. Arjun traced the words with his finger, his mind racing. Love unbroken. It keeps repeating, Dev. Maybe it isn't about rituals, or offerings, or prayers. Maybe it's us. Dev shook his head, though his pulse quickened. You think a kiss can undo centuries of binding? Arjun leaned closer, his lips brushing Dev's ear. Not a kiss, a life, a love you choose. Dev's breath stuttered. He turned, only to find Arjun's face inches away, eyes dark, lips parted. The world fell silent, the banyan, the night, even the restless spirit within. When Arjun kissed him this time, it wasn't tentative, it was fire. Dev gasped, hands clutching Arjun's shoulders. The taste of him was dizzying, electric. His body, unused to closeness, burned at every touch. Arjun deepened the kiss, coaxing, devouring, teaching him the language of desire. Dev broke away, panting, eyes wide. Arjun, I don't know if I can. You can, Arjun murmured, kissing the line of his jaw, the curve of his throat. Because I'll show you. I'll wait. Or I'll take you slow. But I won't let you keep believing you're untouchable. Dev shuddered, torn between centuries of fear and the new ache of want. His fingers traced Arjun's face, tentative, reverent. No one has ever touched me like this. Not in love, not in hunger. Arjun caught his hand, pressing kisses to each trembling fingertip. Then let me be the first, the only. And Dev, fragile, trembling, burning, let go. Their mouths met again, fiercer this time. Bodies pressing together, as if trying to erase every inch of distance the Banyan had ever imposed. Dev's hands roamed uncertainly over Arjun's chest, down his sides, learning the shape of a man who was real, warm, alive. Arjun guided him, patient yet insistent, teaching him to claim and be claimed. Their breaths tangled, their bodies moved in rhythm, their hearts hammered like drums calling to the monsoon sky. For Dev, every kiss was salvation. Every touch was proof that he was not just a ghost bound to a tree, he was a man, desired, cherished. For Arjun, every gasp, every broken moan was a vow that he would fight the curse, the spirit, the whole village if he had to keep this love alive. When at last they stilled, sweat-slicked and trembling, Dev lay with his head against Arjun's chest. The Banyan whispered above them, not angry, not jealous, but almost approving. Do you hear it? Arjun whispered again, brushing damp strands of hair from Dev's forehead. Dev nodded faintly, lips curved in the smallest, most fragile of smiles. It doesn't say mine anymore. What does it say? Dev lifted his gaze, eyes luminous in the moonlight. Ours. Chapter 7. Rain had passed, leaving the village washed but uneasy. The air smelled of damp earth. The leaves glistened like emerald glass, and for a moment, everything seemed calm. But the calm was a lie. Arjun sensed it as he walked through the narrow paths that morning. Conversations stilled when he passed. Men stood with bundles of firewood too close to hand. Children who once ran to greet him now clutched their mother's saris, staring with wide eyes. He had always been an outsider, but now he was something worse, an accomplice. That night, he hurried to the Banyan with a weight pressing on his chest. Dev sat on the roots, as usual, but even he seemed tense, as though the tree itself had whispered warnings into his ear. They're planning something, Arjun said without preamble. Dev's lips pressed into a thin line. Of course they are. They always do, once someone gets too close. Arjun crouched before him, taking his hands. Then we'll stop them. Dev shook his head bitterly. You don't understand. You're fighting more than people. You're fighting centuries of fear. They will never see me as human, Arjun. To them, I'll always be a curse wrapped in skin. Arjun's grip tightened. Then I'll teach them to see. That's my job, isn't it? Dev's eyes softened, pained, moved, yet full of dread. He wanted to believe, but centuries had taught him better. The first attack came with fire. A group of villagers crept through the night, torches hidden under cloth to mask their glow. The Banyan loomed, silent and watching. Arjun and Dev, unaware, sat leaning against the trunk, their fingers loosely intertwined. The sudden flare of torches broke the stillness. Shouts erupted. Burn it down! End the curse! Arjun jolted upright, shielding Dev instinctively. Flames licked at the roots as villagers pressed forward, eyes wild with fear and hate. Dev froze, every muscle locked. The Banyan trembled violently, roots writhing as if in agony. Its voice, low, guttural, furious, echoed through the clearing. Mine, mine, mine. The villagers screamed, but did not stop. Arjun leapt to his feet, throwing himself between the fire and Dev. His voice rang out, stronger than he thought possible. "Stop! Do you hear yourselves? You're not fighting a curse, you're killing a boy." "Monster!" someone shouted back. Arjun's chest heaved. He spread his arms wide, blocking Dev from view. "Look at me then. Do I look bewitched? Cursed? I've spent more time with him than anyone in this village ever dared, and I see nothing but a man who has suffered more than all of us combined." The flames crackled. The villagers hesitated. Some lowered their torches, others raised them higher. Behind him, Dev whispered brokenly, "Arjun, please, don't." But Arjun didn't move. His voice cracked with raw passion as he shouted, "If you want to burn him, you'll burn me too. And if that's the choice, then so be it." The clearing fell silent. Banyan stilled, watching. The villagers faltered, fear and doubt twisting their faces. Firelight flickered over Arjun's stance, over Dev's pale, trembling figure behind him. And for the first time, the curse whispered something different, not to Dev, but to Arjun. "Yours, yours, yours." The torches wavered. One by one, they were dropped into the mud, hissing out. The villagers retreated, muttering, unsettled, unwilling to cross the line Arjun had drawn with his body and his love. When the last of them vanished into the dark, Arjun collapsed to his knees, trembling with adrenaline. Dev caught him, pulling him close. "You're insane," Dev whispered, his voice breaking. His hands cupped Arjun's face, his thumbs trembling against his skin. "Insane and impossible." Arjun managed a shaky smile. "Or maybe I'm exactly what you needed." Dev kissed him then, not tentative, not desperate, but fiercely, as though sealing a vow. The banyan's roots shifted around them, not in attack this time, but in a strange, protective circle. For the first time, Dev wasn't just surviving the curse. He was defying it with Arjun at his side. Chapter 8. The Language of Touch. The banyan had grown quiet since that night of fire. The roots no longer writhed in rage, and the whispers in Dev's mind felt less like chains, more like threads tugging at the edges of his heart. For centuries, the spirit had only claimed him mine, mine, mine. But after Arjun's stand, something had shifted. A new word lingered. Yours. Yet, Dev could not trust it. Not fully. The morning after, Arjun arrived breathless, with scrolls and books tucked under his arm, borrowed from the old temple library. His eyes shone with stubborn determination. "There must be something," he said, setting the texts down on the banyan's roots. "A story, a hymn, a ritual, something that explains why the spirit bound you here." Dev smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in his gaze. "You'll waste your days chasing shadows. Then I'll chase them," Arjun replied firmly. "Because if shadows are all that hold you, then we'll bring light." Dev wanted to argue, but the conviction in Arjun's voice was like fire. It was terrifying. It was irresistible. Days passed in secret. Arjun divided his hours between teaching his classes and poring over brittle manuscripts by lantern light under the banyan. Dev would sit nearby, sometimes reading with him, sometimes simply watching him with quiet awe. It was in these quiet hours that intimacy bloomed. Not rushed, not stolen, but earned in fragments, one lingering brush of fingers, one shared blanket when the night air grew too cold. One evening, Arjun read aloud a half-faded passage about spirits of trees. Bound by grief, bound by love, bound by betrayal, such spirits hunger not for death, but for devotion unbroken. Dev's breath hitched. His fingers tightened around the fabric of his kurta. Devotion unbroken, Arjun repeated softly. He turned to Dev, searching his eyes. "That's what she bound you with, isn't it? Not hatred, not punishment, but a twisted kind of love." Dev swallowed hard. "If that's love, then it's a prison," Arjun reached across the roots, sliding his hand into Dev's. Then we'll rewrite what love means. Together, Dev's throat tightened. For so long, his body had been nothing but a vessel of waiting, untouched, unwanted. But now, each time Arjun's skin met his, he felt alive in ways he thought were forbidden. That night, under the canopy of banyan leaves, Dev let himself lean into Arjun's shoulder. He expected the banyan's curse to rebel, to snarl, to twist him away. But instead, the roots hummed softly beneath them, like a lullaby. Arjun tilted his head, lips brushing Dev's hairline. A shiver ran through Dev's body. "You can stop me if this feels wrong," Arjun whispered. Dev didn't move. His voice came low, trembling but sure. "Don't stop." Their mouths met slow, unhurried. A kiss that was less about hunger and more about unveiling something sacred. Dev clung to Arjun's kurta, as if afraid he would dissolve, as if afraid the banyan would rip this moment away. But it didn't. When Arjun deepened the kiss, Dev let out a broken sound. He hadn't known he was capable of a sound that was part relief, part desire, part centuries of loneliness unraveling. Arjun drew him close, palms framing his jaw, then sliding down to cradle his back. Their foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling. "You're real," Dev whispered, almost in disbelief. "Every time you touch me, I remember I'm real." Arjun's chest ached at the words. He kissed him again, slower, lingering. His hands traced the sharp lines of Dev's shoulders, the tense muscles of his arms, teaching him that touch could be gentle, that closeness could be safe. And Dev, for the first time, allowed himself to want, allowed himself to believe. Later, when they parted, Dev rested against Arjun's chest. The banyan leaves whispered above, the spirit's voice softer now, no longer jealous, almost curious. "Do you hear it?" Arjun murmuret. Dev nodded faintly. "It's not angry tonight." "Because it knows," Arjun said, his lips brushing Dev's temple. "It knows love when it sees it." Dev closed his eyes. For the first time in centuries, he let himself drift into sleep in another's arms, and the banyan did not wake him.